What is up, guys, and welcome back to my channel. You're watching the daily series of Nwadei MMA, where we talk about everything going on in the MMA community, and of course we post daily as I give you my thoughts, but more importantly ask for yours, because the MMA community as we know it is very fast moving. If you are new to the channel here on Nwadei MMA, I post my fight reactions, in-depth fight analysis, fight predictions, breakdowns, post and pre-fight, and occasionally we do vlogging videos as well if you are trying to become an MMA fighter yourself. However, with that being said, if this sounds like something that interests you, we do post daily MMA content, and if you are interested in that, then go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, and you are more than welcome to subscribe. And if you do choose to do so, hit that bell icon to be notified whenever we post, because we do post at all times throughout the day. However, with that being said, let's get into the ginormous news we have today in the MMA community. Guys, Francis Ngannou has signed with the PFL, and it happens to be the most lucrative and the most expensive and the most talked about deal in MMA history. This is bigger than the trade of Demetrius Johnson and Ben Askren. This is bigger than anything we've ever known in MMA free agency. We've never had a UFC champion retire on top and then move to another organization to go ahead and fight. We've never had the world lineal heavyweight champion leave the UFC and look elsewhere. And never had we had a fighter fight this much for other fighters. Wow. Okay, so there's a lot of things to get to. I'm gonna try and run through these all quick for the time being. So in this video, we will be going over everything that this contract includes, starting with how much money him and his opponent will be making. Then we'll be going into what this means for the MMA community as we know it. You guys and me. Damn, Francis Ngannou has won. Okay, so the first thing we must talk about is that the PFL, him signing with the PFL, is strictly only for MMA. They do not promote boxing. However, before he does have a fight in the PFL for MMA, he will be fighting in boxing. That is what he wants to do. It doesn't necessarily have to happen before he has his MMA debut in PFL, but he wants it that way. And in the contract, he is allowed to go and explore his boxing opportunities. However, when he does fight in MMA, he has signed with the PFL's Superfight division. So if we remember correctly, that's the one that Jake Paul was helping to create, the Superfight division, where he and his opponent will make a massive amount of money. His opponent has a $2 million guarantee, which is unspeakable because he's the one who fought for that. He's the one who was advocating that his opponent gets compensated very well.
What they put even a guarantee for my opponent, and I think this is something that Chachi want to leverage about it, because I told him about it. They put my opponent is going to have a base salary of a guarantee of 2 million when he fights. So, and then that's just the guarantee, maybe the basic. So it depends if he's like he have a leverage to negotiate. He can negotiate and ask for more. That's his own, but he will be having a minimum of 2 million, and yes, we guarantee that. But as far as mine, I get a little more than that. Let's say that.
Okay. However, on top of that, let's not think that his opponent is making more than he is, because that will not be the case. Francis Ngannou was the highest touted free agent in the MMA community, and I think we all know that. Francis will be earning up to 50% of the pay-per-view buys that he generates during his bout. He has signed a multi-fight deal. He was talking on Ariel whether it was 2 or 3. He said it's close to 2 fights, but it is a multi-fight deal, but not too many fights, so I'm guessing it's 2 or 3. He has 2 or 3 fights with the PFL in which his opponents will be making $2+ million, which is an extreme amount of money and unheard of in the PFL. So they're breaking boundaries. Francis isn't breaking boundaries, but because the pay-per-view structure in the UFC is that the champions make 10%. Some champions maybe make 20% if you're like Conor McGregor, as far as pay-per-view buys goes. So doing the math here, if they were to sell a million pay-per-view buys at $60 a buy, which it's more now, that'd be $60 million. 20% of that, or 10% of that, would be $6 million. That would go to the champion. $12 million if it's 20%, that would go to the champion. However, Francis will be getting 50%. So if it does a million pay-per-view buys, at $60 a buy, that is $30 million that will be going into Francis Ngannou's pocket, along with his already guaranteed money, which he did not disclose. Now, will it do a million pay-per-view buys? It's hard to really say. However, say he gets a win over Deontay Wilder or Tyson Fury or whoever he ends up boxing, it's very possible. Very, very possible. And say he makes 15-20 million from that fight, 20 to 30 million for his PFL fights each. This is an insanely lucrative deal. This is the best deal that any MMA fighter has ever gotten in terms of contracts and free agency positions. And yes, I think we could declare that Francis Ngannou won. He won at life. As far as MMA fighters are concerned, he's won. And this is only good for MMA fighters because now they know that their presence outside of the UFC, outside of maybe even another global empire in one championship, is still valued by other promotions, and they can still have that freedom while signing a contract with MMA. Of course, they have to bring their side of it. They have to be a dominant force in MMA. But the fact that if you are a champion in the UFC or you are a world champion of some sort, that you have this kind of power, it's very important to the MMA community. However, not only is this very lucrative for the MMA community and future MMA fighters and Francis Ngannou himself, but he will also be the chairman of PFL Africa. PFL has already started setting up infrastructure in Africa to host an event. He will be the chairman of that. He will be behind a lot of the business decisions that go into that and expanding PFL Africa. He is also on the Fighters Advisory Board, so he would be advocating on behalf of the fighters alongside Jake Paul. If you remember, he, I believe, is the one who created that whole division in the PFL, the Fighters Advisory Board. So now Jake Paul, Francis Ngannou, and potentially, we don't know yet, it's not confirmed, I don't believe, but Georges St-Pierre could also be a part of that. He's been trying to advocate for fighters for a long time. This union that he once wanted could be the union that we're seeing now and today in the PFL. It's not really a union, but they have a team trying to protect the fighters. And how Francis mentioned it in his video, in his announcement video, was that there's always two sides to any deal. There's the fighters and then there's the promoters. And a lot of times their views don't align, which is why there will be an advisory board for the fighters ran by fighters. A
board that is there to advocate for fighters who doesn't have voice, who are not all there, although they are not in the table, but they are the one making the sport. Promotion doesn't make sport. Fighter makes sport. And people seem to forget that.
Oh my god, it is storming outside. I hope that this does not ruin my audio. But as far as what this means for MMA, for the UFC, for the whole community in general, for you guys, for me, and for everyone watching this video, well, let's just keep in mind that the promotional race, whether it's in the US or global, is still running. The UFC has not officially monopolized everything. They of course are the biggest entity. They won championship very, very closely behind UFC, and even in some global standards and in some global numbers are ahead of the UFC. And then we have the PFL, which is making ginormous moves. I mean, they've signed Cedric Doumbé, one of the hottest free agents and top prospects in MMA today. They signed Francis Ngannou, the hottest MMA free agent. Jake Paul, one of the hottest entities in all of combat sports. He will be making his MMA debut for them. But let's not forget, one of my previous videos, they're also in the works for buying Bellator MMA, which is currently the second biggest US promotion, which will give them a lot of ground that they're trying to make up in overtaking the UFC or in competing with the UFC. However, they're not just trying to buy up Bellator MMA and its fighters and its fan base. What they are doing is they are going to wait, because Bellator, they were planning to expand into Europe, and then from there maybe they would get bought by the PFL. The PFL would be now a world organization and a global leader as far as a fan base and international fan base is concerned. Not only that, but then heading off their PFL Africa division with Francis Ngannou. I mean, PFL is making some giant moves, giant leaps. They see what one championship's doing. They see one championship coming to the US. They see the UFC kind of not falling behind the curve, but not willing to adapt. They're just kind of pushing their content and making it more expensive, and still trying to keep the brand of UFC bigger than the fighters, in which is smart for them. But the other ones are competing and they're using different methods. One championship is bringing all sorts of different martial arts. PFL is bringing a season, so a different way of looking at MMA. They're all bringing something different, which is all just beautiful for the fighters. It's beautiful for the fans because they have different things to watch depending on what kind of fan you are. And all in all, this is just great for MMA. So I'm glad that this is happening for Francis Ngannou. What are your thoughts, guys? Please always feel free to comment along my videos as I'm talking. Maybe I answer your questions in this video, or maybe I have to answer them in another video. Leave your comments down below so that I can do that. But what are your thoughts about this? How do you guys feel about Francis Ngannou maybe not fighting in MMA again until he is 37, fighting boxing before he fights in MMA? Who do y'all think he fights in boxing? I know Deontay Wilder, that fight was close, but now he is maybe gonna fight Anthony Joshua. The Anthony Joshua fights, they were in talks, but I'm not sure really where that went. Tyson Fury, they were in talks, but then it was interrupted by Usyk. Now Usyk and Tyson Fury may not fight, so it might be open again. But who knows what we're gonna have to look forward to in the next couple of months with Francis Ngannou. What do you think is gonna happen? But guys, this will conclude my video. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for stopping by Nwadei MMA, the daily series, where I give you my unsolicited thoughts and opinions, but more importantly, ask for yours. Y'all stay safe, y'all stay blessed, and I'm out. Peace.